Good morning. Hopefully you guys are doing outstanding today. Welcome to the midweek show. Jeez, time is flying by. I don't know about you guys, but it sure the heck is for me. But I got my coffee. Hopefully you have yours. We can have a nice, relaxing show today. Cover some topics. So let's just dive into that. Welcome to Break the Cycle with DSD. I am your host, Duane. I am not a therapist. I'm an individual much like you. Basically, we do peer support here. Been through a tough experience over the last 9 years or so. And out of the ashes of that, I developed tips and techniques that I use for myself that I share with you to help you get your life back. Break the cycle of abuse and strengthen the relationship with your kids. If you are thinking about diagnosing your ex with a personality disorder, don't. Only a licensed professional can actually diagnose an individual with an issue. Just be careful. Don't throw away your credibility and hurt your position by having it undermine your, well, I guess basically your position. If you like what's going on here and you want to support it, you can become a YouTube channel member of the channel. And when you do, you get special badges, custom emojis, your name's listed in the credit, member-only events, and access to the member-only area of the Discord. There's a public area too, so the Discord's still a great place for additional support. If you want to get notified via text message when the show goes live, you can do that by texting DSDLIVE to 844-598-0012, 844-598-0012. And speaking of phone calls, if you want to call into today's show, you can do that by dialing 1-424-373-5483, 1-424-373-5483, or 44 DSD Live. And on that, this year, I swear, our time is just speeding up. Although I will say that at the beginning of the year, it sure didn't feel like it. It was like, oh my God, this is going to be the longest year ever. I mean, can you believe, this is the 16th of December already. It's like, what in the world? Crazy. Hey, I just want to mention before we start diving into everything that tomorrow I asked Caleb Leverett to come on to the show. And the reason I'm asking him to do that is he's basically kind of moved on from the activism type thing, and he's just trying to live his life. And he ended up buying a really small sailboat because he's been talking about doing something like that forever. And he's actually doing it. And if everything works out tomorrow, he'll join the show from his sailboat somewhere near, I think he's on the Gulf side. So I think he's on his little boat. And the thing I think is just interesting about that, or the reason I like his story, and I know there's some people who don't like him. It's kind of like a love-hate relationship with him, but we have all been through the ringer on this. You know, you don't enter family court and your life isn't fundamentally altered. And typically there is a loser. Well, everyone loses in this, but some people are basically destroyed. Well, doesn't it always seem that the other people just kind of just live their lives and nothing ever happens and family court's not after them and all that kind of stuff. And anyways, so he is, I remember when I talked to him like last year, he's like, you know, I'm going to sell my house. or get out of my house because he didn't have a house. He was renting. And then anyways, whatever. And he was like, I'm going to get an RV, or I really want a sailboat. And, you know, it was kind of like one of those things, was like a pipe dream. I look at it like there's some dreams I have, some things I'd really like to do. I mean, there have been many times over the course of the last 9 years where I'm just like, man, I'm grateful for my career, but it's like, you get to the point where you want to do something different, but you can't because you have obligations and you can't just walk. It's weird, right? In normal life prior to divorce, you could get up one day, or if you've never been married, you don't have anything like that. You can get up one day and say, you know what? I'm changing my life. I don't want to live where I'm living anymore. I don't want to work in this career, and I'm going to do something different. And you can do it. And you can downsize, and you could sleep on someone's couch if you need to, or whatever, to make ends meet. But the second you get involved in family court and you're the payee, I'm not sure how it would be for the payer, but if you have been designated that a significant portion of or any portion of your income must be paid to the other person, you no longer have the option to downsize. You can upsize. If you can go from making 50 grand a year to 100 grand a year, or 100 grand a year to 200 grand a year. But let's say you're making 100 grand a year, you get assessed support and you are just burnt out. This thing takes it out of you and you're like, man, I need to take a downgrade. I need to go do something else. I need to leave my crazy job and I want to be a gardener and just, trim grass and make yards look nice. Or even if, let's say that's something you wanted to do, I'm just using it as an analogy. I don't like yard work, so to speak, but I'm just saying that, if you decided that, hey, I want to do something different. Well, if that means losing money, you effectively can't. I mean, that was a situation for me because I still have a bogey I have to pay. If I lost my job, more than likely the state of California would say, well, you used to make this amount of money. You should be able to continue to make it. And we'll just put that in arrears for you. We'll just keep that balance in the system and encourage you to go back and start making more money. And anyways, my point about this is when you get caught up in this machine, you can feel like there's no hope of getting out of it, that it's just going to destroy you. And it can. And I encourage anyone who's in that mode, do everything in your power to stay current. If that doesn't work, try to get the numbers reduced. I would be careful about it if you do. Just understand that there's sometimes, or a lot of times, people go into court to get their numbers reduced and like, well, while we're here, let's just increase it. I would definitely encourage you to look at your, your state's. Oh, please don't reset everything. I have my computer wanting to update thing. Your state. Man, that completely threw my train of thought. I hate that. But bottom line, what I'm saying is that there is life after this. Don't get eaten. If you at all possible, don't get eaten by the machine. I know everyone says stay out of family court, and that's absolutely true. However, one person they control it. I'm sure every one of us would have loved to go to their ex and say, okay, let's have an amicable divorce, separation. Let's work this out. Let's focus on being there for our children. But when you have one person who has alternate plans, or who wants total control, or who wants to erase you out of everyone's life, or at least the kids' lives and their lives, but it makes it impossible, and you have no choice. They force you to get drugged through the machine. And the only way, I've had people say that to me, and it's like, I didn't want to go through this. I didn't want to deal with this. I didn't want to dump tens of thousands of dollars all over just light it on fire. And, but at the end of the day, I had no choice. The ex is like, I've decided that, you shall be a visitor. I will be the primary. I will take all your money. I will have all decision-making capabilities. And the only way for me to have stayed out of court, and see, I wouldn't have stayed out of court because I would have agreed to that. Then they would have done child support enforcement. Then it would have just been, just one mess after the other. And guys, let me just throw this out here to most people. Narcissistic, toxic people generally don't, unless you beat them down, they don't go away. They are going to stay there. I've known people personally, even one of them, a woman who ended up basically getting forced to give up her parental rights because, and her ex played a number. I mean, that was actually multi-state jurisdiction problem. Like the divorce started in California, then they moved to Florida, and then they moved to Georgia, and then they got the location switched to a different state. So, California said one thing and Florida said another and Georgia said something else. And, so now this person is having to pay an attorney in 3 different states and they do emergency orders and it was a mess. And finally she lost. And they forced her to sign away her rights. Now, you would think, okay, you won. Leave me the F alone. Don't rub it in. Guess what happens? Your kid, your kid that's not your kid needs dental work. Don't you care? It was just like continually like, hey, we took everything from you, but now we're going to just remind you of this situation and try to guilt you to pay more and do more. It's horrible. These people are effing horrible. Anyways, that was weird. I didn't mean to go down that. So tomorrow's discussion isn't going to be about this. Tomorrow's discussion is, well, it might be a little bit about this, but this discussion is going to be more about, how somebody went through a nightmare scenario, lost everything, ultimately lost their career, not because of this, just because of, the economy and, you can only he does diesel engine mechanic Caterpillar work. And, he just basically got retired. I have a buddy in the film business that basically they just stopped calling him. Some people, their careers just retire them. And when I say retire, it doesn't mean you get anything. It just means they don't pay you anymore. They don't call you anymore. Man, I feel like I'm being negative, but what I'm trying to say is that there's life on the other side of this. I did not feel it. I did not feel that there was life on the other side of this. I felt that this had just destroyed my life, my future, and any chance or opportunity that I was going to have to do anything that I wanted was just gone. I remember a buddy of mine early on in this. I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm Inspector Gadget. I like technology stuff and stuff. And he's like, man, you're going to get knocked down on this. There's not going to be any more phones, not going to be any more, new cars. There's not going to, you're basically going to be screwed for a long time. And when you're at the beginning stages of this, the worst, I understand people sometimes are like, well, let me, let you understand what it is so that whenever it hits you, you're not surprised. But it's bad all the way. If you, if someone's telling you all this stuff and you're anticipating, destruction, that's bad. And it's bad whenever you're sitting there living it too. And I lived it for quite a few years. I lived paycheck to paycheck. I almost was going to live at my office because I couldn't afford to drive back and forth to the house. And what I meant by that is like, okay, well, maybe if I was at the point where it's like, well, okay, the time I don't have the kids, if I just stayed in my office and I'm not running my electricity, I'm not driving, putting gas in the car. I had a truck. I still have the truck, but at the time it was just killing me. 17 or 18 miles to the gallon when gas was what, $4 or $5 a gallon. I was just like, oh my God, I don't even have the ability to put gas in the car. Anyways, my point on this is it may seem bleak, and I'm seeing some comments. Oh, I missed a super chat. Let me come back up with this. I'm sorry. I'll just stop for a second. Clover B, thank you so much for, hold on a second, skip this version. Oh my God. It's like update day. From Clover B, thank you so much for the super chat. You didn't say anything though. Moderator Debbie, if Clover B asked a question, can you grab it so I can address it? So thank you so much for that. Super chats are definitely appreciated. Ow. You guys, okay, I know I'm not a spring chicken, but for whatever reason, lately, I like to sleep with my hands above my head or out, right? And I guess I've hit that threshold of age and time that the old chassis is starting to wear down, and now my shoulder just bothers me. I see no words. There were no words. Okay. Yeah, isn't that annoying? And the other thing I just want to mention on that, I hate it when I do that. I apologize for tapping the mic. When I first started this, I was so worried that I was going to be sitting in idle, being able to do nothing, just burning time, and that my time would run out and I would never get the possibility or the option to enjoy life or recover from this. Now, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I would love for this all to be over at 40, and have all my 40s to be out from underneath family court and the ex. But what I'll say is I was so worried about that. But God, my life is turned around. I mean, yes, some of those worries, financial worries and stuff I had back then are still in play. But the interesting part is that my life is so much calmer. It's so much better. I mean, there's still stress, but I mean, it doesn't feel hopeless, right? And I think that's the key thing that you need to remember is that you can be in the front or in the beginning stages of this. You can feel like there is no hope. Just don't dive into that catastrophic way of thinking and just go head first into it like I did, because it doesn't accomplish anything. And I'm telling you, kind of like we were talking about the other day, that acceptance, perseverance, and perspective. Those three things coupled together change everything. And even when I still had 3 kids on the dole, I like to call it the dole. I think my dad used to say that. That and ransom. Anyways, when I was still paying ransom on all the kids, I'll say it that way. I found peace in my life. I found a way to just be happy. Now, granted, 2 kids have dropped off. Finances are starting to ease up. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I have like little less than 3 more years. And, in some ways, I mean, I'd never do a boat thing because I don't, but I mean, don't necessarily like that. But I mean, that idea of just the freedom to be like, man, you're done. You've made it through it is really cool. Anyways, I'm going to check some comments out. The phone lines are open. You can call in 1-424-373-5483. If you have a success story you want to share, let me know. Let me see. I'm trying to see what is going on. Let's see. Oh, Ruben, Buddy, man, found out I was right about my ex, but still can't be happy about being right. I knew I wasn't crazy. God, it's funny you say that, man, because that's another one of those things that are just really annoying about this process. One would think that once you realize that you're dealing with somebody that's not quite right and that you're not crazy, you would think that you would feel significantly better. And maybe for a moment you do. It's like, yeah, I'm right. And then you're like, oh crap, I'm right. I don't know how many times I went through that to where it's like I would just kind of just get caught in this loop. It's almost like you get stuck asking, and I'll ask you this, Ruben, do you get stuck just kind of asking yourself, why? Why the hell did this happen? Because I know I sure did. And every time I had an epiphany or an awakening or whatever you want to call it, it was really difficult to be happy. It's like this situation just beats you down. Last caller. I'll hit that in a second. Anyways. Oh, I guess I'm missing what Clover's asking questions, but I don't see the question. Hey, Debbie, can you I see where you said, that's true. Duane's ex managed to do that to his young. What are we talking about? Can you pull that up? And while I'm waiting for that, Alex had asked, let me see if I can find his comment. Alex, I'll just read it. Alex says, any suggestion on how to prevent the scenario from the last caller yesterday? And that was a scenario where a lady had called and I think it was her new husband. Her husband's ex's ex-stepdaughter is now accusing him of being inappropriate touching, so to speak, so I don't get completely demonetized. Here's the sad reality, and that's very common. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen in every case. Honestly, you have to be realistic about the situation and understand the risks. The problem is with this, let's see, how do I want to say this? The problem is you can feel, and in a lot of ways is true, you can feel that this person that you've escaped from or who's left you, depending on whatever the case is still screwing with your life. And the reality is they can still screw with your life. And that particular caller, if I remember correctly, they're dealing with custody issues and they're now dealing with a criminal case. The case has been referred to criminal division and they're being investigated for that inappropriate relations with I'm assuming the child would be even lower, probably 14, 15-year-old kid. And so the advice for dealing with it, be very cautious of what you do. Be very cautious of who you allow into your life. And understand that there's always an inherent risk with these people that they will do anything to win. The problem is not obviously apparent. It's not obviously apparent whether they're telling the truth or they're lying. So the system is going to basically believe them. And it is a very common tactic for an abusive ex, or let me just say, for an ex to claim, and especially in the middle of a custody battle, some type of criminal activity as it either pertains to them, meaning the adults, or the children. And then you're dealing with both of those issues. So bottom line is, if you suspect, okay, here's the thing. The short version is this. If you have an ex that you suspect would allege those type of allegations, be very careful about who you bring into your life. Be very careful about what you tell your ex. I would say probably somebody like this, if you were single and you were not in a relationship, but they hear that you are the happiest you've ever been and you bought yourself a new motorcycle and you're cruising around enjoying life, it wouldn't surprise me if they're like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean you're happy? You're supposed to be miserable. Well, how do I make you miserable? And then they do this type of stuff. So it's guys, really, that's one of the reasons. I mean, it's one of the considerations that Debbie and I have had on why we don't live together. Because what are the consequences of that thing? Now, do I think that my ex would well, let me back up. Yeah, there's a couple of scenarios where I could see her playing that type of game when the kids were when the kids were younger. But I mean, that was part of our decision matrix, right? I mean, and here's the thing. This is really unfair for a new relationship person who jumps into these things. They don't realize that your ex is Satan. And I'm joking. I'm being sarcastic when I say that. But what I mean is that, they don't realize how difficult it really is, because most people don't think it's this bad. They see you and they're like, well, yeah, those people are stupid who have those really toxic relationships. This can't be bad. And then they get in the middle of it, and then they get attached to you, and you guys develop a relationship, and then they're right in the middle of the crap show too. And you can adjust you can accept the situation, you can adjust your perspective, and you can have perseverance. But when they start attacking you in a different way, it's hard to get that, it's hard to put up the barriers on that. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I've never asked Debbie this, but I mean, if some type of accusation like that came up, levied against her, I mean, I don't know at what point do you say, you know what, this is it's too much. I can't deal with it. So anyways, all right, let me scroll around. So according to Debbie, Clover, oh, wait a minute. Was it? See, now I'm confused on trying to Clover B. Okay. All right, let me see. Oh, I also see, well, let me see what Caleb is saying too. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Now it's a matter of trying to figure it all out. Oh, I see Debbie say something about don't place your, yeah, don't put your personal numbers in here. Oh, that must be why there's a discussion of the Discord. Here's the thing. If you're looking for people and you want to connect in here, and this is a good segue into this. Let me try to pull this up. Join the DSD Discord. Even though I mentioned that if you become a member, there's a paid, there's a special section. 90% of it, well, 95% of it is open. Not open to the public per se, but all you got to do is make an account. And when you do that, and then you just validate that you're a real person, I'll add you in to the other areas. To get into it, the easiest way is I think Debbie might have posted in the or in the live chat a comment. If I remember correctly, in the show notes and the video description, there's a link for it. And on the main page on YouTube, it's the little icon over on the right. You can see in the main banner, you have the link for the website, a link for PayPal if you want to just help buy me a coffee and you don't want to do it through YouTube, through Super Chat or whatever. And then there's the Discord. If you do the Discord, you can do you can do text, you can directly text or communicate via text on people. You can do audio just between two people or with other people in the thing. And you can even use it as video calls. I think it's It's good because that way you're not giving out your personal information. You're not just giving some random person or posting your phone number publicly for everyone to see. You have a way to where you can connect with people, and if something goes wrong and that person isn't who isn't who they say they are or whatever, you can easily turn around and just delete everything and knock it out, or even so there's options to protect you. Anyways, I digress. Let me scroll down some more. Oh, let me get back on the main screen. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. John made a comment where he says, when we would have a big snowstorm, the kids would be outside playing all day. The ex would stay inside and complain it was too cold out and made us all feel guilty we were outside sledding. How dare you be happy and do something if it's not something I like? Yep. You know what? And that's just an example of one of those red flags that you feel, that's not the right word, that you see when you're going through it. All right, I'm scrolling around. I want to see if I missed anything from when I was talking to Ruben. No, now Ruben had said he just feels so defeated. You're going to feel that way for a little while. I felt that way, but that feeling doesn't last forever. I mean, it lasts a long time. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like, see, that's the other thing that I always found frustrating about this, when people would say, oh, it gets better. And, most of the time I think, don't most of us think that when someone says, oh, it gets better, you think, oh, okay, well, in a couple months, few weeks, it'll get better. No, sometimes it takes a few years, but it does get better. It does get better. Oh, yeah. A lone parent Ira liked my spring chicken comment. Rotator cuff, that bear says, rotator cuff messed mine up sleeping too. What the hell? I can't even sleep now without hurting myself? My God. I thought I was falling apart in my 40s. Holy crap. Thinking about maybe trying to pick up one of those special pillows for that. Maybe that would help. Maybe just at least take some of the pressure off to get things back in order before it really messes it up. Anyways. Ruben says, the guy I accused her of talking behind my back to 6 years ago is the guy she's dating now. Everyone called me crazy. Yeah, and I would imagine Ruben typically to be like, well, we weren't doing anything then, but he was such a mean person and so controlling and paranoid. And Billy and I we were just friends, and now we blossomed into the most romantic relationship ever. Oh, there's Alex's question that I just answered. So finally found that. Anyways. Nah, it's tough, man. That gaslighting and cognitive dissonance where you're just, I know those two different things, but I mean, just where you just start questioning yourself. You're like, wait a minute, what's my reality? Something doesn't feel right. No, you're just being paranoid. Oh, Alex has said, was it the father being accused or the stepson? It was the father. I don't know if he had in that scenario. I can't remember. I think they had younger kids. So, yeah. It's bad all the way around. Shit. You do it to a child. I mean, if they turned around and the kids got accused of it, and if someone, alleges or puts an accusation like that out there, excuse me, typically law enforcement gets involved and it just starts going down the process. Oh, you know what? I need to I was going to make, for tomorrow's show, I'm a little worried that there's going to be, extra trolls. So I am going to, the Wise Chat Manager had offered to moderate. So I'm going to add him as a moderator to help control the chat. Excuse me. So I'm glad I remembered that, because the only way I know to do that is during a live show. All right. Okay. Okay. Oops. Oh, I see Clover B says something. Oh shoot, maybe this is what's happening. I'm happy and successful now. Oh man. I've missed whatever. I'm trying to scroll around. I don't know what else you've been saying, but I'll tell you, little story. So I think Clover, you're new. I remember calling child support service, the California Department of Child Support Services in my area. And I think this was around the time my oldest son was dropping off, or maybe my middle daughter, I don't remember. And we were just chatting. I like to be sarcastic and see if I can make people laugh. You know, I'm going to do it in a fun way, not just being a butthead. And the lady was laughing and whatever. And we got on the topic of, just talking about the past, what happened. And the lady said to me, she goes, man, you don't know how many ex-wives, as you know, who can be remarried, have a new life, even have another kid from somebody else, and their ex-husband gets engaged or gets married, and they pick up the phone and they're like, how do I make their life miserable? And I'm like, seriously? She goes, oh, it's bad. And, the system is set up in such a way that, if they say the magic words in the right order, then things start to happen, and it's real, which is the reason why I say, or I tell you guys that I'm okay with my ex thinking that I'm a disgruntled, angry, bitter person, because the more she thinks she won, the more she leaves me alone. Now, granted, she's out of money and going back to court, is tough. Sometimes Debbie and I talk and we think, maybe some of the things she's doing is trying to force court to do, but I don't know. The reality is at least she's not doing that. But I would very, very much encourage people to be very close hold in what's going on in their lives and how things are going, just so that you don't have that type of scenario. Wise Chat Master Manager was just, I guess, giving the definition of silver bullet. It's anybody new, silver bullet is kind of what they just call this type of scenario we're talking about. And he says, claim the silver bullet is where they claim you did something bad to them, then triangulate that you messed with the kids, then enjoy all the free aid the system now provides them. Oh, that's the other aspect of it. I forgot about that. Is that typically in that situation, then they get free attorneys and all kinds of extra stuff. Again, it's just another example of how somebody will do whatever is in their best interest without any regard to the collateral damage and what happens with that. So, all right, I have two callers, but I'm going to go to the one saying MSA dealing with the aftermath, marriage separation agreement dealing with the aftermath. So let's see. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Cool. Yeah, I figured I've never called in before, so but I don't know, just like there's so many great topics or so many great things that everybody was saying that are just kind of par for the course as far as how things seem to go for like every one of us.
Yeah.
And I guess I was just kind of inspired to phone in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Glad you did.
I've talked a lot about, yeah, I mean, I've talked about, in the member, chats that we've had, I've kind of shared my story there. Um, I'm not too keen on putting it out here because, I mean, this stuff will be recorded and whatnot. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I understand.
but, uh, but, I mean, it's just little things about like, how, there's not much takeaway once you kind of realize what's going on. And I mean, it does provide a little bit of relief, but like, like you said, afterwards, it's like, oh, great, I was right. And, then you
Oh
start kind of
yeah.
feeling, well, now what, and, I think, I don't know what I try to take away from it. And I mean, I kind of had help with it because, because of therapy and whatnot. But, my takeaway was like, yeah, I'm not crazy, and I mean, after years and years of basically being made to think you're crazy, gaslighting and the double binds and everything. I mean,
Oh yeah.
my situation, the gaslighting was not extremely effective because I just had a general habit of saving text messages and things like that. So, I would present that evidence and then realize later on that it doesn't matter to the other person. But the double bind thing, I mean, it was almost like tactical. I mean, every situation was like, oh God, damned if I do, damned if I don't. And that it really it's crazy making. So
Yeah.
after all of that, then it does provide a little bit of relief to know that you're not, you've been damaged, and and those things may come from other sources or whatever that kind of lead codependency and whatnot that sort of bring you to where you're at. But you get to actually look at it and say, well, this is not me, this is the other person instigating, setting things up, that sort of thing. The other thing that that was really that kind of touched home with me was the significant other, or the next supply that comes
Oh yeah.
comes into view. And with that situation, it was somebody, it was an old ex coming back into the picture, and sort of being, I guess, resupplying or whatever. And and that whole situation was awful because I mean, it was instant, it was like right away, it was like
Oh,
as
of
soon as the
course.
discard there was something else, you know and of course, like you said, oh, this is great, there's the happiness, and it's just so much better, and and in my case it was like, wow, that's that was a shot in the gut. So
Hey, let me just let
that,
me
I
just
mean,
pause for a
that,
moment. You do, because I'm not sure how much you've seen on this, but that is very common that they discard you, are the target, and you're the worst thing in the world, and it's like the next day they found their new soulmate, and all it is them basically mirroring and recreating the scenario like with you, right? Because typically when we look back at our old situations, the same thing happened to us. We were the best person, we were their soulmate, we were the coup de grace, so to speak, and now we're not. I mean, it's all an act. And I mean, you probably
right,
know that. I just want to say that for, just in case you don't, and for anyone else listening, because
yeah,
so often I hear from people who say, I don't understand, it's like now they're with now their life is great. They're with their soulmate. They're showing pictures about how they're so happy and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like a dagger in the heart.
yeah. I mean, and it's that's the whole thing. I mean, you can know this stuff, and just like you said, I mean, I definitely know it, but that doesn't, knowing and feeling are
Oh
two,
yeah. Oh yeah,
separate
absolutely.
things,
Oh, it still
that's
hurts
the
like
tough
hell.
thing.
No,
It's
you're
like,
right. You're absolutely
yeah,
right. Yeah.
and I think, a lot of this stuff, like, like I kind of followed suit, like a lot of other people, as far as, as soon as you kind of get the, gain the knowledge, or at least the notion that you're in this situation, that you are dealing with this kind of person, that's when the search engine, you start putting the work into that, and you
Yeah.
surf the, the YouTube channels, and you try and find anybody who's just sort of in some kind of line
Yep.
with, what you're feeling or what you're going through or had similar stories, and and you kind of go down this checklist of like, yep, all that happened. And I think that it's like, it's tough to say. It's like that's sort of kind of a process that you kind of have to go through, and again, it does provide some kind of relief, but at the end of it, you're still kind of left holding this bag of feelings, and with all that information, and again, and then something that I really do like about how you kind of structure your shows and the way that you provide the information is to sort of make sure that when you have this information that you don't misuse it. Like especially in court, you don't want to go pointing the finger and saying things like, oh, well, they do this and they do that. A really good friend of mine who was sort of, at the ready as far as, when I was feeling what I was feeling, needed to, reach out to people, especially, right before court or, when things were about to happen. They would remind me, stick to the facts. You're not there to to represent and make a case for this person's mental deficiencies or mental faculties. You're there to establish that that everything that you do is for the best interest of the child. Well, in cases of course with kids, you're there to establish that everything that you're doing is in good faith, and you're there to establish that, especially anything that you are not, I guess, up to snuff with as far as anything. If you got any kind of anger stuff to work out, or if you got any whatever. Even if you don't, I mean, everything that you're doing. I mean, for me, it was like parenting classes, therapy, keeping up on everything medical and dental and whatnot, and just you're showing up with an arsenal of facts. You show up with an arsenal of feelings.
You're hosed.
It's really, yeah, you're hosed. You're completely hosed. And that was big for me. It was just you're there to show you're there to show evidence in a sense. And basically what I did was I gathered up everything that I had, and everything that I had was sent to my lawyer and to the GAL. And when it came time for that, when everything was ready to go, it was there was nothing else to do, and it was basically just sit quiet and let the legal system do what the legal system does. And that's I think that's the other thing, because I know that this is something we talk about a lot, as far as the legal system being what it is, and it's really it's messed up.
Yeah.
And it does follow, and I mean, and really a lot of stuff, like especially with like child services and things like that, with silver bullets and whatnot, they have to, because of a lot of discrepancies that they've dealt with in the past.
Yeah.
They have to follow up on that stuff, and they have to follow it up with kid gloves. So, I mean, it is also, like it's basically like a cover your ass kind of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're looking out to make sure that they don't get beat over the head from their higher ups and whatnot, because I mean, everybody's got to answer to somebody, and especially where I was, Child Protective Services had quite a few issues beforehand, so they started handling things a lot differently, and now it's pretty much, at the drop of a hat, they follow up on stuff.
I think they don't have a choice anymore.
When it comes to things like, right. I mean, so when it comes to stuff like that, I mean, it's really, again, especially when accusations, start happening and whatnot.
Right.
You really have to, protect yourself. And sometimes that means, not being able to, do everything you want to do or in the way you want to do it. I think it's really smart the way you and Debbie factored in everything that you factored in.
Yeah,
when
thanks,
making
man.
a decision about your lives together. You know what I mean? That's I mean, unfortunately, it's hard to make, intelligent decisions when you're under the influence of so much emotion.
Yeah.
But again, that's sort of what the reaching out is all about. Like I genuinely believe that if not for having, genuine friends who, weren't listening to one side or the other and just kind of saying, well, this is where you're at and this is what you need to do, and having therapy and having this show to be able to fall back on and to look through videos and say like, oh, this is where I'm at and what I'm going through. I would definitely have made a lot of mistakes.
Wow. I'm glad I could help in that regard.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, it's been years of of going through videos, rewatching videos, and for a while I couldn't really tune into shows, a lot of your shows or live shows, so I was catching everything like secondhand.
Oh, okay.
But
I'm glad you caught a live one.
A lot of it. Yeah, I mean, after the smoke is cleared now, like I'm able to participate more and like, being in the member chats has been really great. So yeah, it's just, it's really, I think I kind of just called in to really kind of reaffirm like what you say, like life gets better. It takes a lot, and a lot of the stress doesn't always go away, but you just kind of learn to, handle it a little bit better. We're invested in this whether we like it or not, and the best way to go about it is to stay plugged into like a network like this. You know what I mean, and to find positive ways to move forward.
Well, I appreciate you calling in and sharing that. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you, man.
There is life after this, right? And you could tell in the guy's voice it was just on that I mean, he's still in the middle of it. You can feel it. But once you have that hope back in your life that there is a chance that things are going to get better, that is life changing. And that's part of one of the things I try to do on this is just add a little, give you some things that you can implement to help your situation, which ultimately leads to you basically getting your hope back. So I'm going to go now to a return caller. It says basically dealing with my ex and the holidays. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hey, Duane, it's T Solo.
Hey, T Solo, how you doing this morning? Unfortunately, we're starting to run out of time. So what's going on, man?
This will be real quick. Quick. But first of all, just that last guy that called, man, bless his heart, man. We've all been where he's at, and I just feel for him and just tell him keep his head up. You can tell he's got a lot of pain in his voice, and I just hate that. Really touched me him talking. So, but on the other side of that, we've all went through that stage. I just want to tell you a situation that happened and how things change and how you handle situations over time. Most recently, my ex got COVID basically, and it changed up her schedule about her time sharing. And basically, it was due to the quarantine restrictions. It was into my time. So listen, I said, let's just switch times so that way that you can do your quarantine and there's no danger or anything. Well, my ex wouldn't do it.
I was going to say, what? You're bringing up logic and some good solution? How dare you, T Solo? What were you thinking?
Yeah, and the funny thing was, if that would have been 3 or 4 years ago, I would have totally freaked out.
Oh, right.
And it had been such a big ordeal. It had been an argument. And basically, I just sent her the guidelines and say, listen, I'm not stealing any of your time. We're just switching times this week to next week, and then we'll get back on a regular schedule. It's not difficult. And so after 2 or 3 days of just trying to constantly nag me and get in an argument, basically I said, listen, I'm not going to do this, but what I will do is I may even pay your payment a little bit earlier, and that way I don't have to make back and forth trips because I'm the one who usually does all the dropping off. Right. Basically, the whole point of this story is after 3.5 years, I've learned how to deal with it without getting emotionally attached. And basically, at the end of the conversation, I got an okay. After 3 days of just constant texting, it was like, okay. And and I guess my point of the call is you learn how to deal with your adversary.
Yep.
When you get emotionally attached and feel good about yourself. And like I use the analogy like to my callers, a video game character is leveled up. I'm leveled up to the point now where I don't get emotionally, one way or the other. And it's really good to be there. And for all the guys out there that's going through that, you will get there. I promise you. It may take a while, but you will. I was at the lowest point 2 years ago where, and we've all been there. And now over time, and you learn how to deal with these people, you do get better. And all the guys out there, just keep your heads up, guys, and keep working. You can do this.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that. And that's really the key. I mean, and the point of it is that you don't, it's not like she's changed. She stayed the same person, but now it doesn't affect you the same way. Thanks, man.
And you just learn that. Thanks, man.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Say what you're going to say. You just learned what? Go for it. I wasn't trying to cut you off. Oh, I appreciate that though. But anyways, you know what? I mean, it makes me smile just because to hear people that pivot from, because I know, right? I mean, we've all been there. You come up, it's like, all right, here's a problem. Here's a reasonable solution. Doesn't affect anything. I'm not trying to steal anything from you. Let's just do this. And the answer is no. N-O. Big no. And that's probably what comes back in the email. Maybe. And your initial reaction is just to get PO'd and to want to be like, you crazy, beep, bleepity, bleepity, bleep. And it's like, you realize after a while, I mean, okay, for instance, this COVID thing when it started and, they were telling us it was going to be end times and, mass graves and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, holy crap, I'm like comorbid on a bunch of different levels for this thing. And I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm going to offer up that the kids basically plant themselves at one place for a while until the dust settles. Now, granted, in my situation, she did agree for me to let me have 2 of the kids. But honestly, I was in the mindset where I'm like, you know what? I wasn't going to argue. Years before, I would have been just irritated and, I mean, granted, technically that one was an easy one, but I mean, you just get to the point where you understand what you're dealing with. You understand that you're dealing with somebody who's emotionally unstable. And you don't take it personally anymore. You detach from the emotions and you're like, okay. And here's the crazy part with what T Solo was saying is you do that and then they don't get the reaction. Well, they still want communication. They still want that connection. So sometimes, unless they can get you all riled up and then they'll just be like, no, and then they'll stop talking to you, right? And then you're going back to them, trying to get them to re-engage. But when they realize you don't really care and it's like, hey, you know what? Here's, you got, sorry, you have, well, I don't know, maybe you said sorry, but she had COVID, but you're like, hey, here's a solution. We can do this, minimize the risk. Not a big deal. And when she said no, and you're like, well, all right, okay. Just trying to be helpful. It's like, wait, what? That's it. The conversation's over. It's just stupid, but they'll do stuff like that. It's like when they realize it's not working, then it's like, oh crap, I got to adjust my approach so that it doesn't go the same. It's I can't even pronounce your name. Jules Verne, if I'm saying that right, says they are quite predictable. They really are. Ruben says, how could I love such a deceitful person? Because they didn't start out as a deceitful person, man. They started out as the perfect person that you were so lucky to meet. Heard that story multiple times. It could be if the woman's a target, the guy is Prince Charming. And if it's the guy is a target, I'm talking about straight relationships. So just, they become the person you always wanted. And you believe the hype, or you believe the illusion is a better way to say it. And then as they start to change because they can't maintain it, they, you make excuses for it. So it's just, it is a very common thing. So don't beat yourself up on that, man. I know we all have. And to be perfectly honest, I went through the same thing on that. We can talk about that more later because we are out of time. Holy crap! Where did the time go? On that, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Remember, tomorrow I won't be doing phone calls because I'll have Caleb on. We're going to be talking about what it's like to live on a boat and get your life back and get out from underneath all this stuff. So on that, be kind to yourself and, don't take on any more stress than you really need to. On that, I just want to say thanks to all the channel members who are scrolling across the screen right now. You guys all help keep the lines open and the lights on and the software running. I really appreciate all the support. And on that, take care of yourself. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow.